Hi everybody, I'm Pitney and this is Amelia from the Bitchin' Boutique.
We'd love to have you explore our wonderful world of weirdness with us.
All delivered with our signature humor, sassiness, and dare I say, bitchiness, general fandom,
Star Wars,
Star Trek,
fabulous furries,
horror,
Pitney's obsession with eating terrible foods,
Amelia's penchant for real cooking,
the worst person in the world who thinks it's stupid to brush your teeth,
Verity Noslin, who once cried in a Kinko's because the wrong copier was used,
Trisha von Lichtenstein, a woman with a less than wholesome relationship with her car.
But wait, there's more! Like everyone, we have our more serious sides, and we share a healthy dose of what makes us tick and what is important to us. Queer issues, women's politics, alternative spiritualities.
Stop on by for a visit. We're sure you'll want to stay. Pitney and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique, wherever the best podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Queens of the Damned, a horror podcast. This week, Nikki and Rachel are going to be talking about Unsolved Mysteries once again. And I will not be in this episode, but Nikki and Rachel have some fantastic picks for you guys. We would like to remind everybody that we are taking questions for our 50th episode. So you can email them to us at qotdpodcast@gmail.com. You can private message any of us if you're friends with us on Facebook. You can message the Facebook page. You can DM us on Twitter. You can send us a message through Instagram. Whatever way is easiest for you to contact us. If you have any questions, please send them our way. We really would love to answer your questions for that episode. So without further ado, here's Unsolved Mysteries Part 2.
So I chose the Zodiac Killer. So now that they have caught the Golden State Killer, or the alleged Golden State Killer, I guess we should say.
Oh, fuck that. What is he going to do, sue us?
I know. I mean, come on. The Zodiac is hands down my very favorite unsolved serial killer. It was probably a tie between those two, but now it's just old Zodiac. So, the Zodiac was confirmed to be active between 1968 and 1969 in California. He has 7 confirmed victims, but he claims that he killed 34. Some people believe the actual number could be as high as 20 to 25. But again, there are 7 that we know for sure that he attacked. 5 of them were killed, and 2 were critically wounded but survived. The first attack was on December 20th, 1968. Betty Lou Jensen, who was 16, and David Faraday, who was 17, were on their first date, and they planned to attend a Christmas concert at Hogan High School. But they ended up deciding not to go for whatever reason, and they instead visited a friend, and then they stopped to eat at a local restaurant, and then drove to Lake Herman Road, which was kind of like a lover's lane. So David parked his car at 10:15 p.m. in a gravel turnout, and it's just assumed that they were sitting and talking. And based on forensic evidence, the police know that another car pulled up next to them, and they suspect that the person driving the car ordered the couple out of their car. They think that Betty Lou exited the car first, and then as David was climbing out of the car, when he was about halfway out, he was shot in the forehead and killed first. Betty Lou then ran from the killer and was gunned down 28 feet from the car with 5 shots in her back. And then the killer drove off. The bodies were discovered at 11 p.m. by Stella Borges, who lived nearby. And this was investigated by the Solano County Sheriff's Department. You will notice that all of the killings take place in different jurisdictions, which, at least for a while, stops these cases from being linked, even though they are similar. Very similar.
That was a huge problem back then, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, because they didn't have, of course now, well, I don't really know if this is real, but on Law & Order SVU, they have the database where they can put in the killer's MO and see if there are any hits to any crimes that have a similar MO.
If that's not
Obviously,
real, it should be. Like, they should have a library.
I feel like it is real. But I don't know. I mean, now, at the time that these killings happened, basically their only method of communication was, like, faxing each other. Hey, we just had this murder. You'd fax, like, all the neighboring police departments. Here's what happened. And then, you know, who knows if anybody even read it. It probably got stuck in a file and then forgotten about. So in any case, the Solano County Sheriff's Department investigates these murders. They don't end up developing any leads, and the case goes cold. So then on July 4th, 1969, Darlene Farron, age 22, and Michael Majot, whose name I might be pronouncing incorrectly, were out on a date. Darlene was actually married. Michael is not her husband. So initially, some of the suspicion for this crime did fall on her husband, but he was eventually cleared, obviously, once they linked it to the other murder. So the couple parked just after midnight at Blue Rock Springs Park. It was only 4 miles from the first murder site, but it was in a different city. Again, this was a lover's lane. And again, this was a couple parked in a car at night.
And they were sitting there talking?
Yep, sitting and talking. So a car pulls in next to them, but then almost immediately drives off. And they kind of think, you know, oh God, like, what if that was a friend of Darlene's husband? Or what if that was her husband who, you know, is kind of like checking up on her and realizes that she's stepping out on him with this guy. 10 minutes later, the car returned and parked behind them. The driver then exited and approached Michael's car with a flashlight and a 9mm handgun. He shined the light in the victim's eyes before shooting them 5 times. Both victims were hit, and several bullets passed through Michael and hit Darlene.
Oh my God.
So they went through his body into her.
I think that happened in the Texarkana Moonlight Killer case, too. Because that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Yeah, it's pretty common, unfortunately. I mean, they were so close together. I mean, when you think about it in a car, you're sitting, and especially you're at the lover's lane, you're sitting right next to each other, right? And then you both turn, and that's kind of it. Yeah. So the killer walked away, but heard Michael moaning in the car, and so he came back, and he shot each victim 2 more times before getting in his car and driving away. So this was at midnight. So at 12:40 a.m. on July 5th, so about 40 minutes later, a man called the Vallejo Police Department to report the murder and claim responsibility for this and the previous murder that had taken place in December. Police traced the call to a phone booth at a gas station only a few blocks from the police department, but they weren't able to get any fingerprints off the payphone. Once they got to the scene, Darlene was pronounced dead, but Michael survived the attack despite being shot in the face, neck, and chest multiple times. So Michael ends up being able to give a description of the killer. He describes him as 25 to 30 years old, about 200 pounds or more, approximately 5'8", white, and with short, light brown curly hair.
Oh, so like everyone?
Exactly. So basically he kind of looks like an everyman. There's really nothing distinguishable about the way that this guy looks. So another month passes. At this point, the police are starting to believe that these cases may be linked. Again, the caller who called to report the second murder claimed responsibility on the phone for the first murder as well. So on August 1st, 1969, 3 nearly identical letters were received by the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner. The letters took credit for both murders, and each letter contained 1/3 of a 408 symbol cryptogram, which the killer claimed contained his identity. The killer demanded that the cryptograms be published on each paper's front page, or he would, quote, cruise around all weekend, killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with a dozen people over the weekend. So the newspapers were pretty torn about what to do. Obviously, they did not want to give in to this guy's demands, but on the other hand, what if he really did what he said he was going to do, right? And they felt like, some of them argued that, hey, this is news. Like, yeah, it may be fucked up that this guy is demanding we do this, but this is a legitimate news story. We need to run these letters. So the San Francisco ends up publishing their third, but they do it on the fourth page. They don't put it on the front page. The other two parts are published in subsequent days in the other two newspapers. So then the San Francisco Examiner on August 7th, 1969, so 6 days later, receives another letter. And this letter begins with, Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking, which is the first time that anyone gives this killer a name. He names himself, which is kind of fucking lame, but, whatever. And it contains details about the murders which had not been released to the public, so they know that this came from the killer, as well as a message that once the code was cracked, the police would be able to catch him. They basically have everyone working on this code. The CIA, the NSA, FBI, trying to crack this code. I mean, world-renowned code breakers, and they cannot figure it out. On August 8th, 1969, the cryptogram is solved by Donald and Betty Hardin of Salinas, California. He's a college professor. She is a homemaker. And they like doing crossword puzzles.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
And they crack the code. Yep, and they crack the code. So the cryptogram basically states his alleged motive for these murders. So it says, I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and the I have killed will become my slaved. I will not give you my name, because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of solves for my afterlife. So all of his letters are riddled with horrible misspellings and grammatical errors, obviously, as you could tell. So that's what he said. If you look at the way that it's spelled out, like 50% of those words are spelled wrong.
So is that possibly why it's so hard to crack that code? Because there's no logic to it?
Yes.
So it's not really that he's that clever. It's that there's just no logic.
It's that everything is misspelled.
Okay.
And so it's hard to figure out what word is what. So at this point, obviously, this does not have the killer's identity like he said it would. And the Zodiac goes dark for a month. No more letters. So on September 27th, 1969, Pacific Union College students Brian Hartnell, age 20, and Cecilia Shepard, age 22, are on a date. They're picnicking at Lake Berryessa, California, when they see a man watching them from behind a nearby tree. The man was later described as about 5'11", more than 170 pounds, white, and combed, greasy brown hair. So pretty close to the other description.
And this is the scene that we
close.
see in the beginning of the Zodiac film. Like, this is the iconic Zodiac scene, right? The picnic.
This is not the first. Yes, this is the picnic.
Yes.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
the
it wasn't
picnic.
the first one.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
No.
But
This
it's
is
like the
picnic.
iconic scene from Zodiac. The picnic and the...
Yes. So then the man puts on an executioner-style black hood and sunglasses over the eye holes. And then he's also wearing a bib-like device on his chest with a cross circle on it, which looks like the crosshairs of a gun. He approaches the couple with a gun and claims to be an escaped convict and says that he needs their car and their money to escape to Mexico. He had pre-cut plastic clothesline with him, and he forces Cecilia to tie up Brian, and then he ties up Cecilia. If you have seen Zodiac, you know that he checks Brian's binds and sees that she tied him up really loosely, and he does tighten them. That did happen in real life. Mm-hmm. The man then forces them to lie on the ground and pulls out a knife and stabs them repeatedly. He stabs Brian 6 times and Cecilia 10 times. The killer then hiked to where Brian's car was parked and drew the cross circle symbol on his car door with a Sharpie. And below it wrote Vallejo 12/20/68 7/4/69 September 27/69 6:30 by knife. So then at 7:40 p.m., so about an hour after this attack, the killer has now hiked over 20 miles from the site of the crime. And he calls the Napa County Sheriff, who's in charge of this murder, from a payphone to report the murder and claim responsibility. The phone was located at a car wash. Again, it was only a few blocks from the police station. So it's believed that he was purposefully coming close to the police station to call and taunt them with, look how close I was, and you still didn't catch me.
So he hiked or he hitchhiked?
He hiked to purposefully get close to the police station so that he could taunt them and say, look, last time I called you, I was only a few blocks away from the Vallejo police. And now I'm only a few blocks away from you, and you still can't catch me.
Wow.
I'm right down the street, and there's nothing you can do. So they do find a palm print on the telephone, but they have never been able to match it. And it's not really known how clear it was. They just describe it as a wet palm print. So it's possibly like blurred by sweat. We don't know. Obviously, if he hiked 20 miles, he's probably pretty sweaty. So the victims were found by a man and his son who were going fishing, and they flagged down some park rangers who were able to radio the police and tell them exactly where the victims are. By the time the police arrive, Cecilia is conscious, and she is able to provide a detailed description of the attacker, but she lapsed into a coma on her way to the hospital and never regains consciousness before dying 2 days later. Brian, however, does survive, and he is able to tell his story to the police and to the media repeatedly, trying to get the word out there about what this guy looks like. So 2 weeks later, on October 11th, 1969, cab driver Paul Stein picks up a passenger at the intersection of Mason and Geary Street in San Francisco. And the passenger requests to be taken to the corner of Washington and Maple Street in the Presidio Heights neighborhood, which is not super far away based on my Google map searching. So Stein drives down Washington, one block past Maple Street to Cherry Street, and he parks. And as soon as he parks, the passenger shoots him in the back of the head with a 9mm. He then climbs out of the car, wipes it down, we assume of fingerprints, and steals Stein's wallet, car keys, and then cuts off a large portion of his blood-stained shirt. 3 teenagers are across the street looking out the window, and they see him doing this, and they call the police at 9:55 p.m.
Seriously? And then they still didn't catch him?
Oh, it gets worse. Hang on. The teenagers described the suspect as a 25 to 30-year-old white male, but something happens, and to this day people don't know what. The police radio dispatcher sends out the call that they are actually looking for a black male. And 2 police officers, including Officer Dan Falk, are 2 blocks from the crime scene, and they are responding to the crime. And they see a white man walking along the sidewalk, but they do not stop him because they think they are looking for a black man. So they don't even talk to him.
Oh my god,
They make
he's
no
not even
contact.
smart,
They see
though.
him.
It's just like a streak of terrible luck for us.
Luck. Yes, it's just like dumb luck is better than no luck. So 3 days later, on October 14th, another letter is mailed to the San Francisco Chronicle. It contains a swatch of Paul Stein's shirt to prove that it came from the killer. And it includes a threat to kill school children on a school bus if the letter is not published, which it is published. So then a week later, we're getting fast and furious here. A week later, on October 20th, 1969, someone calls the Oakland Police Department at 2 p.m. and claims to be the Zodiac Killer and demands that one of two prominent lawyers, either Melvin Belli or F. Lee Bailey, who true crime aficionados will know from the O.J. Simpson case, appear on a local morning show called AM San Francisco so that he could speak with them on air. Bailey is unable to make it, but Belli does appear on the show. And someone calls in claiming to be the Zodiac. He says his name is Sam, and he begs Belli to help him. And Belli tells him, I will. And the Zodiac says, I will meet you in Daly City, which is a suburb of San Francisco. And Belli goes with the police to the meeting spot, but the alleged Zodiac never shows. So 2 weeks after this, a fourth letter is mailed to the San Francisco Chronicle on November 9th, 1969. This one contains another cryptogram, which has never been decoded to this day. There are quite a few, obviously amateur decoded versions of this cryptogram, but none have been confirmed to be accurate.
And they're all really
we're not
different.
really sure what this one says. Yeah, they're pretty different. They're different enough that you couldn't definitively say. It probably says, this is the gist of it. Though I kind of assume that it is pretty much the same as the last one. It's just like gibberish.
Yeah.
It doesn't really provide any kind of clue. And with this cryptogram is a 7-page letter detailing the crimes and also detailing how those two policemen spoke to him 3 minutes after he shot Stein. So that was him that they saw. So with this cryptogram, there was also a 7-page letter that detailed how those two policemen actually did speak to him 3 minutes after he shot Stein. So this pretty much confirms that was him, because obviously that detail was never released to the public. That, we think we could have had him and we let him go. So on December 20th, 1969, 1 year to the day after the first murders, a letter was mailed to attorney Melvin Belli, who had appeared on the morning show, containing another piece of Stein's shirt and asking Belli to help him. So this leads some people to believe one of two things. Either that was the Zodiac that called in and spoke on the show, or the Zodiac was pissed that somebody was pretending to be him, and so he also reached out to this guy. I personally think it's the latter. I don't think he called into the show.
Okay.
I mean, if you listen to the call from the show, it's too bizarre. Like, it's just, I don't know. It sounds fake. So several other letters are sent over the next few months. Some are, it's all pretty much the same thing. Details of the crimes, crazy ramblings. There is some speculation that some of them are not from the Zodiac. All of these letters were published in the newspaper, so it would have been really easy to copy them. Mm-hmm. There are a few that handwriting experts have said the handwriting is so different, there's no way it came from him. So on October 27th, 1970... Chronicle reporter Paul Avery, who had been extensively covering the Zodiac case from the beginning, receives a Halloween card signed Z with the cross circle symbol on it. And handwritten inside was a note saying, "Peekaboo, you are doomed."
That's lame.
Yeah, well, this freaked this guy out, and this freaked everybody out. It was like, oh my God, he's watching us. This was a huge news story. Other reporters at the Chronicle, as kind of a joke, would wear these little pins that said, "I am not Paul Avery,"
Oh.
in case the Zodiac saw them. Because, of course, they didn't have pictures with their bylines back then, right? Like they do now in some newspapers. So shortly after receiving this card, Avery receives an anonymous letter implicating the Zodiac in the 1966 murder of Sherry Jo Bates in Riverside, California.
Oh, I know that case.
So a few more letters, yes. So a few more letters do come as late as 1974, but the authorship of all of them are disputed. You know, there's one that they were able to get DNA off the, like where you lick the envelope, where you seal it, but they believe that that letter didn't even come from the Zodiac, so they kind of disregard that DNA.
Oh, no.
So there are a few common suspected victims of the Zodiac. Robert Domingos, age 18, and Linda Edwards, age 17, were shot and killed on a beach near Gaviota, California on June 4th, 1963. Some people believe that they are victims because their murder was extremely similar to the other three couples' murders, I guess you could say. The second suspected death is Sherry Jo Bates. She was 18. She was stabbed to death and nearly decapitated on October 30th, 1966 at Riverside City College in Riverside, California. The police thought they knew who killed her. They were never able to arrest or convict anyone, but they thought that they knew who did it, and it was not anyone related to the Zodiac killing. The final main suspected victim of the Zodiac is Kathleen Johns, age 22. On March 22nd, 1970, she was driving down the street with her infant daughter, driving down the highway, and she got a flat tire, and a man pulled up behind her and offered to give her a ride to a service station. So she and her baby, but back then you didn't have cell phones, and what was her other option? Walk?
Yeah.
I mean,
with
I'm
just
baby?
shaking my head because this is like a horror movie situation.
I know. And so she and her infant daughter get in the car, and the man drives them around for an hour and a half and basically threatens to kill both of them. And eventually she is able to grab her daughter and jump out of the moving vehicle, and they both survive. And she is shown a composite sketch of the Zodiac that was made from the two surviving victims. And she says that that's the man that took her. So we'll never know. But she claims that's him.
Because
I don't know. This is the one that really makes me question.
I've seen so many awful composite sketches, and say that this guy was extremely average looking, it might be a coincidence.
And he is. You know you've seen this composite sketch because this is the most famous one. Yes. I mean, this is the one with the glasses, the one, and, everything.
The one that they put next to
Ted
Cruz.
To Ted Cruz. Yes. So, all in all, throughout this investigation, the police talked to over 2,500 people, and they are obviously never really able to make any kind of arrest or any kind of serious move on anyone. There are literally hundreds of Zodiac suspects. Hundreds. You get on the internet and you get on any kind of true crime forum. There are websites and forums devoted exclusively to the Zodiac, where you will find hundreds of different theories about who did it and why. But the main suspect that anyone who has seen Zodiac or read the book focuses in on is a man named Arthur Lee Allen, and he seems to have been the police's main suspect at the time of the initial investigation. He was confirmed to be in the area of Lake Berryessa on the day of the Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard stabbing. He had previously been fired from a teaching job for molesting the elementary school girls that he taught. Allegedly, he hated women and had never been involved romantically with anyone, or any adult, I guess. So his property was searched multiple times before his death, and immediately after his death in 1992. They were actually getting ready to serve a search warrant when they found out that he died.
Oh.
But they got into his house rather quickly because they wanted to make sure that his family didn't throw anything out. So they were able to extract some DNA evidence from around the stamp of a zodiac letter. It was a negative match for Allen and anyone else in the CODIS database. However, because this came from around the stamp on the outside, it could have been contaminated by anybody.
Right, a postal worker.
These reporters were handling these letters.
Yeah. Well,
right, the postal workers, the reporters, the secretaries, delivering it to the reporter, to the editor. Everyone was touching these letters. So several suspects have come up over the years, as I said. If you're interested in any other theories, we don't have time to talk about them because there are many, 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 hundreds. But they're easily found on Google. There are some that are really compelling. There are some that I find not compelling at all. But they're all interesting, even the ones...
Sorry, I was going to say, what about the most recent kind of quote-unquote news that came out after they caught the Golden State Killer? About how some of the DNA...
so that's what I'm going to talk about next.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So the case has been inactive over the years, but it's currently open in all of the police departments that these killings occurred in, all of the jurisdictions. So in May 2018, after they caught the Golden State Killer, the Vallejo Police Department announced that they were attempting to collect DNA from the back of stamps on the confirmed Zodiac letters. This would use a new advanced technique able to separate the DNA from the glue on the back of the stamp.
Wow, that has to be
which they
tricky.
were previously unable to do. So that's what had been stopping them from trying this previously. And they are hoping to use the same systems used to catch the Golden State Killer. Now, I am skeptical that they will ever figure out who it is. My gut tells me that he's dead and has been dead for a while.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that by now he's dead.
Yeah. Because the only thing that I can think of that's similar is like BTK, right? Mm-hmm. Who went dormant for who knows how long, but just couldn't stay away with mailing letters to the police, and that's what finally got him caught. And this guy was the same. He was exactly the same as BTK. He gave himself a nickname. He was mailing letters. He was doing these like mind tricks, with the ciphers. And I just feel like at this point he would have sent another letter if he was still among the living, or if he was not in prison for something else. Right.
And even if he did, it would be hard to tell whether or not it was an imposter, because I think handwriting analysis isn't all that reliable. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's like...
It's not. Science. Especially because now the letters are available on the internet. You could easily like trace the letters, right? But I think that they will probably never figure out who it is. My personal thing.
So before they
my
caught
personal opinion.
Joe D'Angelo, did you think they'd ever catch him?
No.
No.
But I didn't realize this technology was available. I didn't realize, I guess it didn't dawn on me that they would be using these systems for anything other than their intended purpose.
Right. Well, so it's still possible.
But I thought there was a better chance of catching the Golden State Killer because he left semen at the scene.
Oh yeah, that's kind of...
This guy left nothing.
Like, he left much of nothing that they have to take the stamps off of envelopes to try to see if he left a frickin' thumbprint on it.
Because anything that he would have left back then, any kind of, like, sweat or blood, they wouldn't have thought to try and check for DNA, obviously, because they didn't have that then.
No. But sometimes they did save stuff in the anticipation that, like, later...
Sometimes they did. Sometimes, like the semen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's an obvious one. This one, I don't think he ever got... The only ones that he would have gotten close enough to leave anything were the stabbing victims.
Because you have to get really close to somebody to stab them.
You have to, like... And it was not a long knife. He wasn't using, like, a machete. It was, like, a short hunting knife.
Even if he was using a machete, you'd get blood on you. There's no way.
Right.
Like, there's a transfer of, like, stuff there. It's not...
Right. Right. So I definitely think they have a much lower chance of catching the Zodiac than they did of catching the Golden State Killer. I mostly thought they would never catch the Golden State Killer because I was pretty sure he was dead too. But that was just because he went inactive for so long. The Zodiac, I don't know. I mean, my gut tells me that he's probably dead at this point. I mean, this was so long ago. So he was already 30 in 1969, which was the upper age that they thought he might be. My gut tells me that he is dead. That's what my gut says.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe he's not.
So I was saying...
I mean, there's a guy... Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was saying that when... I don't know about this, but I was saying that when Paul Holes said that it was very conceivable... It was very conceivable for the Golden State Killer to have stopped. That sometimes they just age out of it in a weird way. But with you talking about, like, the MO and everything... It just doesn't... Does it seem less likely to you that he would have stopped? That Zodiac would have stopped?
The only thing that I have to compare it to, because of course serial killers really are few and far between, is BTK. Because that's like the most prominent one that I can think of, the only one I can think of, who took a huge break and then started writing letters to the police again. And there has not been a letter in this case since 1974. So we're coming up on 40 years.
Wow.
I mean, it's about to be the 50th anniversary of the first attack.
And there's that need for attention.
So I just...
That the letters...
And that's exactly it. That's what drove BTK to send new letters, is because people had forgotten about him. And maybe it's because nobody has forgotten about the Zodiac. I mean, as we have mentioned multiple times, there is, of course, the movie Zodiac, which, in my mind, is one of the greatest movies ever made. I don't know who beat it for Best Picture that year, but they probably should have lost. And I don't think it was even nominated, which is bullshit, because it's great.
Yeah, it's a really good film. It's
amazing. It's probably my favorite David Fincher movie, even more so than The Social Network, which is great, too. But... it's amazing if you guys haven't seen it. But again, I mean, there's a million true crime books written about the Zodiac. There's this movie. You know, I feel like it's only a matter of time before the Zodiac pops up on a season of American Horror Story.
Okay.
You know,
He's... Look, Rachel. Have you seen Hotel? He's been there. He's there already.
Oh, that's right.
And also,
I forgot.
I wanted to talk about
the
this,
killers in Hotel.
But you haven't seen season 7 yet. But he comes up in season 7, and you're gonna think the thing. But
Owen Cult.
Yeah, you're gonna think the thing behind it is total bullshit.
I probably will. What, is he possessed or something?
Oh fuck no! I can't even tell you because it's so.
I'll just watch it.
I can't.
I'll just watch it.
You're gonna hate it. You're gonna scream at your TV.
I'll just watch it. But that's... well, there you go then. I was proved wrong. I forgot he was in Hotel, and then, yeah, I haven't seen Cult yet. Because it just came up on Netflix. But, yeah. So, maybe that's why he hasn't written a letter. Because no one has forgotten him. But I don't know. I really don't know. If he's not dead or in prison, I really don't. Because obviously if he's in prison, he couldn't write a letter. Because
they know where it came from.
They screen their mail.
Yeah.
Right. They read their mail. So those are the only two options to me.
He's dead. I'm sure he's dead.
I'm sure he's dead. I mean, if he really was 30 he could still be alive. That would make him 80 right now. If he was 30 in 1969, he would be 80 right now.
Okay, so that's possible.
Conceivable.
It's possible.
It's definitely conceivable, but I also feel like he's dead. That's just what my little heart tells me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will prove me wrong and they will get DNA off the stamp and we will all find out who he is. There is a guy who claims that his father is both the Black Dahlia killer and the Zodiac, and probably some other people.
I know that guy. I mean, I don't know the guy, but I've heard of him. Yes.
His name is Steve. I'm trying to think of his last name. I think Steve Hodel or Huddle. is his name. Oh, he has a blog.
And who believes him?
So he believes that his father is the Black Dahlia killer, the Zodiac killer, the Chicago lipstick murders.
Oh, fuck off.
The Jigsaw murderer in Manila, and the Zodiac.
Oh, you don't get them all. Come on.
Yep.
Obviously, probably none of that is true.
No, I mean, probably not. So I guess that his dad really was a suspect of the Black Dahlia killer, but he was not ever, like, a suspect for the Zodiac killing. He would have been 60 years old at the time of the Zodiac killings.
Yeah.
He was born in 1907.
I was like, what? Wasn't the Black Dahlia in the, like, 40s or the late 30s?
1947.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was 60 years old at the time of the Zodiac killing, so I'm gonna say probably not. But yeah, that's the Zodiac. I hope they solve it. I really do. I don't think they will, but I really hope that they do.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be great and a lot of fun, and it would make me very excited if they were to solve it.
If it's possible to solve, I think we could see it solved in our lifetime. If it's possible.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the only way to me that it's possible is the DNA.
Yeah, because everybody else everyone's dead. And, like,
right.
I mean, everyone comes forward in cases like this and said, yeah, my dad was shit. And it's like, yeah, you and everybody else. It's hard to tell because so many people have awful parents or awful boyfriends or...
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, so the only people who are still alive are the two male survivors. They are both still alive. Brian, the one who was stabbed, he actually became a lawyer. And Michael, the one who was shot, it just fucked him up for life. And he had has had kind of a terrible life. Hopefully he's gotten it together now. But he's had kind of a terrible life since this happened.
Is it the psychological aspect or the physical or both?
I think the psychological. It's very sad. I mean, it's very sad what happened to him. And, allegedly, now this is like almost like an old wives' tale on the internet, like an urban legend. So I don't know if it actually happened or not. But allegedly, Michael Maggio and Brian Hartnell encountered each other one time in a courthouse, like in court. And Michael Maggio said to him, look what this did to you and look what it did to me. Because, of course, Brian was there as a lawyer and Michael was there as some kind of defendant. So it's just sad. It's just sad. And I think sometimes with these famous cases, people forget that, like, these are real people. I mean, it's fun to get online and try and figure out who did it, but, like, real people were horribly affected by this. Mm-hmm. And not just the two survivors. I mean, the family members of all the people who were murdered.
Yeah. Like, it's just unimaginable. It
is. But that's the Zodiac. Hopefully we solve it. My boyfriend asked me if he killed people based on their zodiac signs because he'd never heard of the Zodiac killer.
Well, that's a fair question because why is the name Zodiac chosen?
So there was a brand of watches, Zodiac watches, and their logo was the circle and cross.
Oh, okay.
And that's what they think it came from.
That clears it up for me. Okay.
What did you pick? I'm so excited. So I don't know what you picked.
The case I picked has several names. It's been called the Yuba County Five, the Matthias Group, or, my favorite, the American Dyatlov Pass Incident. So,
yay!
You've heard of Dyatlov Pass, right? And that crazy story?
Yep.
Pretty much everybody has. Okay.
Yep.
So, this takes place in California, and it's February 24th, 1978. And 5 men get in their friend's turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego and drive about an hour away from their home to go see a basketball game at CSU. And they never come home. So there's like 5 people here who go missing. So it's kind of hard to keep track of who they all are. But their names are Jackie Hewitt, William Sterling, Jack Madruga, and he's the one who owned the car, Theodore Wayher, and Gary Mathias. And their ages ranged from 24 to 32. And what makes this story tricky to follow is that each of these men suffered from some sort of cognitive disability or mental illness, and is harder even to figure out what happened because reporting at the time was biased, and it kind of lumped them all into one category. But from what I could figure out, it's known that most of them were able to hold down jobs and function really well in society. Like, they still lived at home with their parents, but they had entry-level jobs, and 2 of them served in the army. Mathias and Madruga served in the army. Jackie had a low IQ, but was never diagnosed with anything. And Mathias had schizophrenia, but he was on medication and had been consistently on his medication for at least 2 years after he was discharged from the army. So there's like kind of a mix-up here. And it's really hard to tell what their cognitive levels are. But anyway, it's enough to be in the army and to hold driver's licenses. So after the basketball game that night, they stopped by a convenience store, and this is like not relevant at all, but they bought they bought 1 Hostess cherry pie, 1 Langendorf lemon pie, 1 Snickers bar, 1 Marathon bar, 2 Pepsis, and a quart and a half of milk.
Oh my god. Okay, party.
It's not certain that they were ever seen again alive. So 3 days later, February 28th, the Montego is found abandoned in the middle of an unpaved road in the mountains of the Plumas National Forest. And that's 2.5 hours away from the town where they saw the basketball game, in the opposite direction from their homes. And the car was not stuck in the snow that had fallen. They searched for them for 5 days. Nothing. They didn't find anything. Then this witness comes forward, and I think he kind of just confuses things instead of solving things. So his name is Joseph Shones, and he says that he was on the mountain back road on the 24th, and he saw the boys. And his story's a little muddled. One source says the reason he was there was because he was driving to his cabin, and the others say that he was checking out the road to see if it had been blocked by snow because he wanted to bring his daughter and his wife up there the next day hiking or something. But in any case, he states that he saw the 5 men between 11 p.m. and 12 a.m. on the night of the 24th. So what happened to him, unfortunately, was he got stuck in the snow. And while attempting to push his car out, he had a mild heart attack. So he lay there in his car recovering. And after this, he says he saw 2 sets of headlights, 2. The people in one car got out and got in the other and then drove away. But then there's another version of the story, which is even weirder, where Shones hears whistling noises when the lights are there, when the headlights are there. And when he gets out to call for help, the lights go out. And after a few hours, there were flashlight beams outside the car, which again went off when he tried to call for help. When he ran out of gas, he had to exit the car and walk 8 miles down the mountain. He maybe saw them, maybe not, because he'd suffered a heart attack, so it's hard to tell.
Right.
In some versions of his story, Shones sees a woman with the men who is carrying a baby, which is even weirder, up in the mountains in the snow in the middle of the night.
Do we think it was like the milk?
I don't know yet. It gets even weirder.
Okay.
So 4 months later, they don't find anything in January or February. Okay. It's the spring thaw.
Right, sure.
And it's June 1978. 19 miles from where the car was found, a man on a motorcycle sees a Forest Service trailer with a broken window. So he does the thing you never do in a horror movie, which is walk up to it.
He goes and look inside. His head in. Yep. And he finds Ted Wayher's body lying with 8 sheets wrapped around it in a shroud. He died of exposure and starvation, having lost half his body weight. He was suffering from gangrene from frostbite. Yes. Yikes. Half his weight. He lost 100 pounds. Oh, it's awful. Oh, no.
This is pretty sad.
Yeah.
He was suffering from gangrene from the frostbite on his feet. And outside the window of the trailer, you could see the unlocked shed that held a year's worth of sea rations. So a year's worth of army food.
Oh my God. It was right outside.
So, yeah, right outside. But they'd eaten 36 of them, but left the rest.
Okay.
And inside the trailer, there were paperback books, matches, and a propane tank, and heavy clothing. The county lieutenant was quoted as saying all they had to do was turn that gas on, and they'd have had gas to the trailer and heat. But they didn't. So, on the bedside table were Ted's wallet, necklace, and ring, and his shoes were missing. And in their place were Gary Mathias's shoes. And there was a watch on the bedside table that didn't belong to any of the men.
Okay.
Then 1 day later, Madruga and Sterling's bodies are found. And they're 11.5 miles from the car on the opposite side of the road from the trailer. So the trailer's 19 miles from the car. They're 11.5 miles from the car.
Okay.
On the other side of the road.
Okay.
So this is just what was in the article, like direct quote. Madruga had been partially eaten by animals and dragged about 10 feet to a stream. He lay face up, his right hand curled around his watch. Oh. Sterling was in a wooded area, scattered over about 50 feet. There was nothing left of him but bones.
Oh, no.
So they found 3 of the 5 men so far.
Uh-huh.
And 2 days later, Jackie Hewitt's father joins the search, and they tell him to stay away. But he insists on finding his son, and he does. He finds his son's backbone. And a day after that, an assistant sheriff finds Hewitt's skull, which of course they identified using their family dentist. And no one ever finds a sign of Gary Mathias. Ever.
Okay.
Just gone. So there are a ton of theories about this, but here are the big questions, since this is a huge case. The first question is, how the hell did they get there in the first place?
Right.
Their family said that they had a tendency to follow the rules to a letter, that they were extremely good, had never come home late, had never gotten lost, had driven before and gone to places, and it was fine. They also had a basketball game the next day they were going to play in, and they were all excited about it.
Okay.
So some people say it's intentional that they went up there. Some people say they got lost, but if you look at a map, it's really hard to find yourself up there. And the second question is, how did they walk 19 miles away from the car?
Right.
In the snow, in the mountains. And then the third question is, why did Ted die of starvation and exposure surrounded by food and potential heat sources? And of course, the last question is, where's Mathias?
Oh God, I don't know.
So one last thing I need to tell you is that the families of all the victims have always believed that foul play was involved because nothing weird had ever happened before with them. Most of them didn't have violent tendencies. And they were easily, I guess could be easily fooled by wanting to help someone who was in need of help. So someone could have lured them up there. And on the message boards, I found one of the family members was commenting, and she was some relation to Jackie Hewitt. And she said the whole family has always thought that something went on there. And she said that a guy who was supposed to present he was like a state's witness, he died of like a poison drink or something, but she never gave the details that we needed, so she could have been an imposter. I got a weird feeling that she was an actual family member who was commenting and trying to solve the case.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just confuses it more.
I don't know.
So, the guy who had the heart attack is an unreliable witness.
I don't know.
Obviously. I think he was in a lot of stress. It was dark. It was cold. He saw everything from, if someone's shining a flashlight at you in the dark, you can't see anything. The woman with the baby, a lot of people have speculated, was actually Jack Madruga, who had longer hair. And he was maybe clutching a blanket or something. That maybe just the perception of what happened was skewed because of the conditions in the circumstances.
And that's kind of what I feel like. I mean, I could see a case for they got lost in the storm, right? Because it was a storm.
Well, the storm didn't happen until a few days after they went missing. Basically, the snow hadn't fallen yet. Like, there was snow up there enough that the road was blocked off at a certain point. Mm-hmm. But the blizzard didn't happen until like 3 or 4 days later, and that kind of stopped the search.
I mean, I could see they broke down or whatever happened. They got out of the car and they started walking and they got turned around. And by the time they reached the rations, and because I've certainly heard stories of this happening before, by the time they reached the rations and the heat, they were so delirious and frostbitten that they didn't understand what it was they had to do. I mean, I know when you are dying of hypothermia, you get this instinct to take your clothes off because you get hot.
Yeah, the paradoxical undressing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't know, like 1 or 2 of them apparently lived for like 18 to 36 weeks or something afterwards.
But that's
they could tell somehow.
But that's what makes me wonder. And then the one that they've never found, you know, obviously maybe something was wrong with his shoes, and so he switched shoes with the dead guy and kept walking and just went so far out into who knows where, middle of nowhere, and that's why they've never found him.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say that Matthias is probably dead. I think we can tick.
Oh, for sure.
Like he died of because they barely found the bodies of the other people.
Right, and the one was just bones.
Scattered over like 50 feet. That's a long ass way.
Yeah. So like who knows where this other guy could be? I mean, to me, he probably just wandered off again and just is so far away from the rest of the bodies, and that's why they haven't found him.
The weird thing is, for me, it's like, why the hell did they go up there?
Oh, sure. Far? That's like, definitely weird.
That far. How did they get up there? 2, the car wasn't stuck. There's nothing wrong with it. It started just fine. When they hotwired it, but the keys were missing.
Okay.
And it wasn't stuck in the snow.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't they have just turned around and driven away?
Right. It's
and
very
some people
strange.
were saying, and this is where it's really hard for me, is because some people were saying, you know, like certain people with certain mental disabilities can get really overwhelmed in stressful situations and make decisions that don't make sense. And so it could have been kind of a group mentality thing, and they just made all the wrong decisions, and it's just really sad that they
could have been, because they were, I mean, and they were not, I'm assuming, super experienced outdoorsmen.
They weren't. But 2 of them had served in the army, and the rations had to be opened with a P38 can opener, which isn't intuitive, I guess, to use.
Okay.
So we know, I think, that Matthias or Madruga, or both, were up there with Ted, because those rations were open.
Were opened with that can opener.
Yeah. So my thing is, like, my question is, how did they get up there? I don't even know why they didn't turn the car around. But then, okay, so they do walk away. They all walk to this trailer. But Ted's got really bad frostbite, and he is obviously not doing well. So they go to get help, and one person stays with him. And they just all get split up and die, basically.
And that's kind of, to me, I feel like almost the most, even though there's still a lot of gaps in that, the most likely scenario. That, like you said, Ted is really sick and he's dying, and so the 2 that are found go off and get help, and they don't come back. So the last guy switches shoes for whatever reason. Maybe there was something wrong with his shoes. Maybe they had holes in them. Or maybe Ted had warmer shoes.
Yeah, this guy had leather shoes.
Okay.
He had leather shoes. So it could be that he was like well, I'm going to go for it. He doesn't need his shoes anymore.
Right. And then he went off in the other direction and just, again, went so far away from the rest of the group. But like you said, I mean, there's definitely still holes in it, though. I mean, why did they get out of the car in the first place? And they took the keys. I mean, they had the mental wherewithal to take the keys with them. Which, to me, if your car's broken down, why would you take the keys?
And it wasn't even broken down. Like, everything was fine.
Right.
It could have, and they said, like, 5 guys could have, it was kind of in the snow, but 5 guys could have easily pushed that little car out. Like, easily. 5 of them.
Right.
They were big, like, athletic, strong guys. So.
Right. And it's very strange that, well, I guess, how far away was the trailer from the car?
Almost 20 miles.
Okay. So if they were alive for 2 weeks, I mean, I could see where, with the cold and everything, then the storm that eventually descended, it taking them that long to get to that trailer. Or 10 days to get to that trailer.
Well, they knew for sure that Ted had lived for 18, I think, to 36 weeks. So we're talking like a few months.
That's crazy.
I could be wrong, but he lived like a long time.
That's so weird.
I'm betting that he contracted the... My problem is, how long does it take you to die of gangrene from frostbite?
Right. I mean, dying from starvation is pretty quick. But dying from gangrene, I have no idea how long it takes. And I don't want to Google it because I'm afraid it's going to be gross pictures that I don't want to look at.
It probably will, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to look it up. Yeah.
No.
But I can't, I mean, I can imagine it would take I guess it would just depend. I mean, because you'd have to, I guess when you die of gangrene, you'd have to become septic. But once you become septic, you die pretty fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know.
I don't know. Like, it's very strange.
There's some parts of it that are extremely logical, and I think a lot of people, take things and run with it on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some parts of it that I'm just like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea. It's very bizarre. Very bizarre.
But yeah, I thought between these 2 cases, I think Dyatlov Pass is a lot more mysterious because people still argue very spiritedly over that case today. It is just one of the
it's very weird
things I've ever read.
Yeah, it's very weird. But I don't know. This one, I mean, I will never know, obviously, but this is one that definitely will just never be solved, unfortunately. Everyone is dead. There's no way of knowing. Well,
there are, allegedly, as of last year, there were family members that were still pursuing it.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
People are trying to do podcasts on it, I know, because on some of the comments, like, people were saying they were putting together the research for podcasts. So sometimes that gets things going again, at least.
Oh, and I mean, I'm sure the family members are still looking into it. But as to will it ever be solved? No, I don't think so. Because to me, my gut for this one says there's no foul play involved. I think the idea of some woman standing there with a baby waiting to lure unsuspecting people off the road just seems a little too like... Do you ever see the movie Wrong Turn?
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
I think the idea was someone said they saw something in that parking lot at the basketball game and someone pretended they needed help and led them far away.
Why? And clearly they didn't, care for them. It's not like, True Crime Garage just did it. The Oakland County child murders, where, these children were found, a couple weeks after they had gone missing. And, when they were found dead, their clothes had been cleaned. Their nails had been cut. They had been fed. They had been taken care of in the time that they were gone. These guys, clearly that was not the case, right?
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, clearly nobody was caring for these guys. So what would be the point of luring them away if you're not going to use them for whatever white slavery, sex trafficking, whatever?
or just to murder them because they saw something. I still feel that like that would be way going out of your way.
Well, and exactly,
like 2.5 hours away.
And clearly they didn't succeed in murdering them for seeing something because they all seem to have died from exposure.
Yeah.
Now, to me, if they had all been found shot dead in the car, okay, then I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
But to have them all die of exposure, you didn't do a very good job of killing them for seeing something.
Well, they did a good job. They just...
Right, but the chances of success were 50-50. I mean, someone easily could have found their way to the road or found them, you know?
Yeah, and I think also the other thing is, like, why wasn't the food eaten? But also, I think if Ted was the only one there, and he was that sick...
How much was he eating?
How much was he eating? How could he even get up? Like...
Right. Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense with him being really sick, and then, you know, once he died, like we said, the last person that was with him would have left. And so that would explain why none of the other... Now, I can't explain why they didn't turn on the propane unless they didn't know how to use it.
Or they didn't even mess with it.
Right. And maybe they didn't know what it was. Though it seems kind of weird. You'd almost think that the guys that were in the military would know what it was, but I've never been in the military, so I don't know what they teach you.
I don't know either. They still knew how to use that can opener.
They knew the can opener.
But it's a special type of can opener that I guess, like, it's not like you squeeze it down and crank it and voila, you've got a thing.
Right.
You know, I don't know. Yeah, and if it was his feet that were affected, you know, what are you gonna do? Crawl out into the freezing cold and go open a sea ration? When, like, can you imagine the times you've been really sick and fevered and everything?
Right.
You can't even get up to go to the bathroom. How are you gonna crawl out into the snow to go get a frozen sea ration? Like,
right. Which is what makes me think that the theory of one of them, the guy who was never found, stayed with him because he could have gone out and gotten the food and opened it. And then obviously once Ted died, he must have left.
And that's what a lot of people think.
Why he would leave, I don't understand, unless he was also getting delirious from the cold.
It could be that you don't know what kind of condition he was in, but also maybe just the thought of moving your friend's dead body, like where you can't bury it.
Right.
Where are you going to put it?
I guess, but I almost feel like he was inside, he was in shelter. That has to be better than going outside.
I guess, but I don't know. I think that makes sense to me sitting here in my warm study. But if I was in the situation, I have no idea what I'd do.
Oh, I have no idea. I would be dead in like a minute. I don't like outside.
Maybe I'd make a break for it.
I mean, I'm not a fan of the outdoors, so I would be dead in like a day. I'd just be like, well, forget it, guys. We're all going to die out here.
I don't even think I'd make it to the trailer.
No, I wouldn't.
20 miles? That's a long-ass way.
It's a long way in the freezing cold and snow. Mm-mm.
Well, I guess we'll never know.
That's so interesting, though. Like, I'd kind of heard of this case, but I wasn't super familiar with all the details.
I had not. I just found it on a list, and I'm very into the Dyatlov Pass case, so I thought, ooh, the American version. Let's do it.
Good choice. Good choice.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at QOTD Podcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/QOTD Podcast, Tumblr at queensofthedamnpodcast.tumblr.com, and YouTube at Queens of the Damn Podcast.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and TuneIn Radio. You can also follow us on our blog, queensofthedamnpodcast.wordpress.com, to find bonus content and extra information on our episodes.
If you would like to donate to our show, you can find us at patreon.com/QOTD podcast, where you can receive special perks as a listener for becoming a monthly patron. If you would like to make a one-time donation, you can send it to QOTDpodcast@gmail.com on PayPal. We'll see you next week.